How do I feel about being a member of the Information Society? That's a difficult question because I didn't know we were in the Information Society.
Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Tough Draught, my brand new homebrewing YouTube channel. This has been in the works for a little bit. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I finally have the means in which to do it. So in this video, I'm going to go through my equipment profile, which includes camera equipment, and all my basic essential brewing related equipment. So I'm just going to start off here. I'm going to go ahead and go through my my quote-unquote camera equipment. So I'm just filming on my iPhone X or iPhone 10, whatever you want to call it, which films better than any other camera that I have, which is kind of amazing. So my tripod is from UB size, and I think so. It comes with a tripod for both. I mean, it can work for any smartphone, any. Honestly, I think it can work for most cameras because it's the one that has a little screw in the bottom. But for the iPhone, it has like a little clamp that clamps the iPhone into the thing. But you can actually use it with a GoPro as well, which I do have. Maybe we'll use that. I don't know. We'll see. So that's my tripod. Just basically breaking it out of the box. I mean, as you can see. So we'll see how it goes. You may hear about if it's good or bad throughout the next however long. So let's just go ahead and go through my brewing equipment here. So some of the basics. I figured that part of the reason that I wanted to start this is just for people who are either curious, people who are interested in brewing themselves, but just people who want to do this as a hobby. I'm not an expert on this. By no means am I an expert on this. It's just something that I really enjoy to do. I work in the craft beer industry, and I hope to maybe one day, it'd be great to own a brewery. But for now, it's one of my favorite hobbies to do. So some things may be up for interpretation or up for discussion. Some things I may have to do some research on, and I'm going to learn kind of along with you guys. I've been brewing for about a year and a half now. My first beer was finished in September of 2017. So we opened it during Harvey, during that fiasco. So let's move on to the brewing equipment. So the first thing that you'll really need is a gallon size, they call it a carboy, but a gallon size glass jug. I couldn't tell you what the brand is of this one. It doesn't really matter. They're all pretty much made the same. But this one in particular is the first one that I ever bought, and it's lasted me for a year and a half. It's actually kind of dirty right now. I need to clean it. But it's a 1 gallon. There's no way the camera's gonna be able to see it, but right in here it says 1 gallon, and I think that line, like right around there, is the 1 gallon fill line. So you can kind of tell, how much your volume is if you're not able to measure it in your pot. So moving on, I have just a basic filter. This doesn't work great for me, I gotta say. It really doesn't work very, very well, if I'm being completely honest. First off, it's not very fine. You can kind of see the holes in there. And the whole point of this is to filter out, like whenever you do your boil, a lot of times you'll add hops and stuff. Oh, there's a squirrel. Hope Lily sees that. Nope, she's just eating grass. So a lot of times you'll have hops in your boil, and this is literally, by the way, this is my ADD personified. Literally, look, squirrel. So anyways, so this filter will filter out some of your hop particles. Lily, stop eating grass. What's wrong with you? She's gonna keep doing that. So we'll just move ahead. But yeah, so during your boil, what I'm trying to get out here is that during your boil you'll add hops, and at the end of that of your boil, whenever you transfer it to your to your gallon jug. This is to filter out the hops that are in there, but it's not quite fine enough. So some of the hop particles get in there, and I have other filters that have worked a lot better in the past. And also, this is your funnel. That doesn't quite work. I have one where it goes, there's like a little lip in here, and it sits right there on that lip. I need to get another one because it's pretty disgusting. But they only sell them with the funnel. So I mean, if you don't have brewing equipment, buy this funnel, and it comes with an awesome, very, very fine filter. So a lot of this stuff is going to be equipment or ingredient type things. So this is priming sugar. We'll talk a little bit more about that at another point, if not in this video, in another video. This one I'm probably not going to be using a whole lot of anymore, but this is a floating thermometer. So in your boil, you just kind of just you make sure you sanitize it. Although I guess if it's in your boil, you don't have to sanitize it, but you just stick it in there, and you can know, maybe during your mash, you can know what your temperature is at, right? So, typically a mash will have to, a mash is where, by the way, a mash for those who are not aware, your mash is where you extract the sugars out of your grains, which can then be fermented into alcohol. So it's the extraction of those sugars. That's what happens in the mash. And it typically occurs somewhere around 150 to 160 degrees. Some people go lower, some people go higher. Just depends kind of on what you're brewing and kind of your style of brewing as well. But this is really important if you're trying to keep your stuff within, during your mash, if you're trying to keep it within a certain temperature. I used to just leave it on the stove, and then I would go check it, and if it was too hot or too cold, I would either turn it up or turn it down, turn the burner down. So it's extremely helpful, extremely vital. You have to have one of these. You have to. It was $8. It's nothing. So this one is a little bit more of an advanced piece of equipment here. This is a portable refractometer. So a refractometer is actually how you can see it's like in this fancy schmancy case here. For a refractometer, so it comes with your refractometer, which looks kind of like a kaleidoscope or a telescope, a dropper, and a little screwdriver. So the screwdriver is to calibrate it. Basically, it's to make sure that that this reads to 0 when it's reading water. So essentially what you do is you put a drop of water, distilled water, on this, which has a sugar content of 0, right? And you look through it, and it'll say, it's a little blurry, it'll say 1.000 or 10. And so what that means is that you're calibrated correctly. If it's a little bit higher than 0 or a little bit lower than 0, you just use this on the top and calibrate it so that it's accurate. So what it does is, like I said, it tells you what your sugar content is. So as you're brewing, you can put a drop on here. You can see what your pre-boil, what they call gravity, what your gravity points are. So basically what I'm trying to say is this refractometer tells you what your fermentable sugars are, and helps you get a sort of a gauge on what your final alcohol content is going to be at the end of fermentation. But the one thing about this is it can only tell you that sugar content before fermentation. So once it has alcohol, it's just not going to give you an accurate reading. Next we have rubber tubing or silicone tubing. I think it's just rubber or plastic tubing. That's what it is. This one is kind of disgusting. You can kind of see. This one is kind of my extra. It's what I use as my blow off tube. Basically, just instead of having an airlock, you just stick it right in the hole in the top of the rubber stopper, and if your fermentation goes nuts, it'll just, if anything bubbles over, it'll just go through this tube, and you just attach it. You just put it like in a pitcher of water or something like that, or sanitized solution. So this one doesn't need to be sanitized because it's never gonna, I mean, one end does technically, but it's never gonna touch the beer that you're gonna be drinking anyways. So and then I just have a couple of little things. This one is called gypsum. It's just little things that you can add to the water to add sodium, magnesium, chlorides, which gives your beer mouthfeel, head retention, different things like that. really not a big deal you don't have to learn all that stuff right off the bat. You can kind of make do with distilled water. I say always use distilled water, but that's just me. So next we have our bucket. So this is actually a 5-gallon bucket, which is way bigger than what I usually do. You can see the little measurements over here. It's $15. Like these things are really, like, obviously when you add it up, it gets a little bit more expensive, but they're really not that much if you're having to buy replacement equipment for whatever reason. So I have a bunch of goodies in here. This is actually, I use this not as my fermentation vessel, but as my bottling bucket. So all the stuff that's in here has to do with bottling my beer. I don't keg anything. I don't have that capability of doing that. I'd love to, but I don't have that capability of doing that. I don't have a chest freezer. Don't have a temperature controlled anything. So this is what I make do with for now. And it works great for me. I've never had a problem bottling, especially nowadays. I've bottled 20 different batches or whatever, and it was a problem at the beginning whenever I first started, but now it's not so much of a big deal. What's important, by the way, with this bottle is that you can see this little red nozzle. That's extremely important for me personally, because I actually use a bottling wand. So this bottling wand attaches to, God, my camera angle, attaches to this spigot right here, right? And once you open the flaps there, the beer will go all the way down here, but it'll stop right here. So there's like a little tip, and you can kind of press it in. So whenever you press down on the bottom, inside the bottom of the bottle, right, it will pour some beer in there. And then whenever you're done, whenever it goes all the way to the top of the brim, you take it out, and this being in there, once you take it out, it's the perfect fill level for beer. Obviously, we'll go a little bit more into the technicalities of bottling and all that stuff at a later date, on a brew video or something like that. I'll do that on my first bottling video. I'll film it and stuff like that. So this one, this is another tube that I probably need to replace. You can kind of see it's yellowed out a little bit. This stuff is so cheap. It's like a fraction of $1. I should just buy a whole thing of it and not even have to worry about it, to be honest with you. But so what this is a siphon. So you put this inside of your gallon-sized carboy, and the air pressure, whenever you do this, it pumps it out. It has to use kind of gravity a little bit, but that's how I put stuff in my bottling bucket. So this is just a little siphon. So the next thing we have in here, so this is important. So this goes back. This is actually not a bottling tool. This is actually a hydrometer. So a hydrometer and a refractometer kind of do the same thing, except the hydrometer will take, essentially, I guess, it'll take your gravity reading in a different vessel. You don't put a drop on it. You actually have to completely submerge it in your wort. And there's like little readings on the side there. In fact, let me take it out. There's little readings on the side that can tell you what you're at. And it's actually typically the more accurate way of doing things. You can see that. So, but the reason that I don't really use it is because I do 1-gallon batches. I don't have enough beer to take a bunch off and do a gravity reading this way. I just have enough to do a drop here and there. So, but to each his own. If you're doing bigger batches, I absolutely would recommend doing that. Absolutely. Oh God, it's disgusting in there. So, lesson learned here. Clearly, my last batch of beer was a complete disaster, and I'm sure that I just was over it by the time I had bottled it, and I clearly did not clean my bottles out well enough. There's all kinds of residue in here, or my bucket out well enough. So this is a bag of bottle caps. Important if you're bottling. Obviously, if you're not a big deal. This is a bottle cap, so basically it's like a clamp. You just put it on top of you put the cap on the bottle, and you put this over it, and you just clamp it on. Very easy. And then I just got an extra airlock here, and clearly it's durable. And an extra rubber stopper as well. No. You're being a good girl. All right, so last but not least, something I hope will be my pride and joy, and that is this bad boy right here. Never been used, just literally just got it in the mail. Just pulled it out of the box, just attached all my things to it. This looks crooked. Oh well, I'll fix it. So, background. So I used to just brew on a regular 2-gallon stovetop type pot, right? What we got for our wedding, an Analon, like copper, whatever it is. I forget what it is. And that was kind of a pain because it's what we also cooked out of. So it would have, sometimes, like if you make chili, sometimes you can't really get that smell out that quickly. Sometimes it kind of has to just fade over time. So it just was never great for brewing beer, but it's always what I've used. For the most part, it's always what I've used, especially since I went to all grain brewing. It's what I've used. However, now I've got this bad boy that I got for Christmas. Although I got a different one from Brewer's Best that was too tall. It was too tall. I'll attach the picture here. But it was too tall for my stove, and it would hit my microwave, and I couldn't put the lid on. It was an 8-gallon. So this is actually an 8.5, but it actually is built a little bit differently. It's a lot. It's a fat thing. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's very wide. It's not very. It's as wide as it is tall. That's essentially what it is. It's about 13.5 inches wide, or diameter, 13.5 inches in height. So it actually came with the ball valve there on the bottom. I don't know how much I'm going to be using that. I mean, we'll see. I've never brewed with this, and I've never had a ball valve, so we'll see. Maybe it's something that I think is awesome that I'll use every time, or maybe it's something that I'll never use. I don't know. But I'm excited to use this. I just got it in the mail. Like I said, it's a Brewmaster 8.5-gallon brew pot, and it barely fits in my sink for whenever I cool down my wort at the end of my boil. Just barely. But also I got this thermometer with the other brew pot, and just kept it for this one. And it's I'm excited about that. That's actually why I'm not going to be using that floating thermometer as much, because this has a gauge inside, and so it can actually tell me exactly what temperature my wort is at. Although now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if I don't end up using the ball valve, I may actually end up having to put the thermometer on the bottom, because now that I'm thinking about my 1-gallon batches, it may not actually reach the thermometer. Oh God. Anyways, not a big deal. So that's basically it. I'm going to be brewing in the kitchen right in here, and I'll take you guys on my journey. And maybe things, I'm hoping that I do some things wrong, because whenever you make mistakes, you can learn from them. In fact, for my last stout, I've already learned my mistake. Several big mistakes that I made that kind of shaped that beer into being not great. But I apologize for the long-winded first video. I hope that you guys stay with me. This is just something that's fun for me, and I hope that you all kind of get that feeling as well. Without further ado, I guess, welcome to my channel, and so long.